Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video not about Helliverses. Yeah, Vox vs King Dice is still being worked on right now, so in the meantime I'm going to be making a video and a short on Valentine's Day. But this video is not about anything has-been or Helliver related. Instead, it's about Death Battle. So in case you guys don't know, Death Battle released Kratos vs Asura, which is awesome by the way. And if you didn't know, at the end of the video, they announced that they'll be making freaking Ghost Rider vs Spawn, which was one of my most wanted Death Battle episodes of all time. And speaking of most wanted episodes, I figured I'd talk about some of my other most wanted Death Battle episodes. Since some of those episodes are actually going to be episodes like Gru vs Megamind, Ash vs Yugi, and Hulk vs Godzilla, those won't be on the list. These will be ones that either have been talked about in the Death Battle community or have just been made up by me. And also, this is just my opinion, so none of you guys have to agree with me. But let me know down in the comments below what some of your most wanted matchups are. And also, feel free to comment down below if you guys agree with some of my matchups. But without further ado, let's get into number 15.
It has formed a fiery hair volunteer. Leche, please! You drank all the leche. What the fuck?
At number 15, we have Puss in Boots vs Buck Wild, DreamWorks vs Blue Skies Animation. This is probably one of the least likely matchups on the list, and since they haven't really done anything in related to these two, but honestly, I can definitely see this happening. There has been a lot going on for this. Two swashbuckling sword fights that love adventure and facing off death. As for who I think would win, most likely Puss in Boots, just because of the fact that he's faced crazier things than Buck has. I mean, don't get me wrong, Buck has faced off a bunch of crazy dinosaurs, but those guys are nothing in comparison to anything that Puss has encountered. So this is my number 15 one. This is probably the least likely to happen, but I still would be very happy if this actually happened in Death Battle.
A platypus plumber? Perry the platypus plumber? Perry the platypus!
At number 14, we have Skipper vs Perry the Platypus, Disney vs DreamWorks. This is another one of those matchups that'll not happen, but I can definitely see this happening sometime in the future. Both of these guys being secret agents or spies in their own universes, they're both really fun. As for who I think would win, I'd definitely say Perry the Platypus. Don't get me wrong, Skipper is very good. He's a good fighter on his own, but he mostly relies on teamwork rather than just doing solo. Whereas Perry, he's been doing solo his entire career. So I think Perry could win this fight, but honestly, I can definitely see this being one of the more goofier fights. Hopefully they do the same thing with Gru vs Megamind, where they go for the goofier side. But honestly, time will tell, since Death Battle has been doing a lot more of the Death Battle episodes that we've been wanting to see. So who knows, maybe this will happen.
Let me show you another move. The dramatic exit. What's that?
13, we have Master Splinter vs Shifu, Ninja Turtles vs Kung Fu Panda. This is one of those matches that I didn't really understand at first and never really got into, but once it grew on me, I realized that this is one of the coolest matchups of all time. Both of these guys paving the ways for great heroes into the future. As for who I think would win, most likely Master Splinter. Honestly, I think it kind of depends on which version of Master Splinter we're talking about here, because in all honesty, I've seen a lot of people talking about the 2012 version, you know, the Nickelodeon TV show version. That version of Master Splinter is pretty goated, and if that version went against Master Shifu, honestly, I think he'd win. So Master Shifu would lose against Master Splinter, but this is one of those matchups where I legitimately do not care who loses, just as long as the fight itself is cool. I said this a lot before whenever Bowser vs Eggman was introduced. Honestly, that was a matchup that I legitimately did not care, because I like both of those characters. I don't care who loses a fight, just as long as the matchup itself and the analysis and everything else about it is cool. So hopefully, if this matchup does happen, Death Battle doesn't screw it up.
Nice. Gotta be nice. Gotta get on the nice list.
Spare some change for the less fortunate.
Ew!
At number 12, we have Hades versus the Devil, Disney versus Cuphead. Again, this is one of those matchups that I didn't really understand at first, but once I dug deeper into it, I realized that both of these characters really have a lot in common, and that this would most likely be one of the funniest matchups of all time. This could definitely be one of those cartoon humor then matchups. It could be like Saitama versus Popeye, where it has some serious moments into it, adding in with some cartoonish fun into it. As for who I think would win, honestly I think it could go either way, with the Devil having cartoon physics, meaning that he can survive pretty much anything, and Hades being an actual god. Honestly, I feel like Hades could win, but also I feel like it would just kind of depend on like how they would go into this. But honestly, I could see either of these guys winning, and hopefully if they do actually do this matchup, they actually do these characters justice.
Okay, thank you, big whale god guy.
Yeah, very happy there's no drought anymore.
At number 11, we have Chaos versus Kyogre, Sonic the Hedgehog versus Pokemon. This is one of those matchups where I honestly really think that it would be super cool just to have a full-on water fight, since I usually hear that water is really hard to animate, especially if it's on Death Battle. And with both of these characters, like entire thing being about water, it'd be kind of hard to have a full-on water fight. But if they do actually do this matchup, it would honestly be super cool. As for who I think would win, I'm not sure. My guess is probably Chaos, just because some Sonic characters are broken, and I haven't really seen a lot of what Kyogre can do. But honestly, I'd be very happy just to see either of these two fight each other. Again, like most of these matchups, I do not care who wins, just as long as the matchup itself is really cool.
The McRib is back!
At number 10, we have the Joker versus the Green Goblin, Marvel versus DC. I mean, Death Battle's already done Spider-Man versus Batman. To be fair, it was all the way back in Season 1, but since Death Battle is doing a lot of our dream matchups now, I feel like this is one of the best chances for them to do probably two of the most iconic, cynical, and psychotic villains of all time. Both of these characters are probably the most psychotic of all time. As for who I think would win, probably Green Goblin, because if Joker tries to use his laughing gas on Green Goblin, I feel like that would make the Green Goblin more insane and more lethal to kill Joker. So yeah, I think the Green Goblin could win this fight, but again, I don't really care who wins, just as long as the matchup itself is cool. But if I did have to choose, probably Green Goblin, because Spider-Man is awesome and his villains are awesome as well.
What's this?
Sock.
What's this?
Fork.
What's this?
Shampoo.
What's this?
At number 9, we have Jack Skellington versus the Grinch. Honestly, this is the matchup that should be a full-on Christmas matchup, because we've never had a Christmas matchup of all time. We only ever have the Halloween matchups. We need to have a full-on Christmas matchup, and this should be the one matchup that we should have for a Christmas episode. As for who I think would win, honestly, I think it kind of depends. If you want to see more information about Jack Skellington, I would recommend you watch my Helliversus episode of Jack Skellington versus Charlie to basically just get an idea of some of Jack's feats and what he can do in this fight. As for who I think would win, definitely Jack Skellington, just because I like him more. But hopefully they do this as a Christmas matchup.
Is this what you want? Come on, strike me down, Zeus. You don't have the ball.
At number 8, we have Zeus versus Odin, Greek versus Norse mythology. Death Battle's already shown that they can do a good job with mythological characters, such as Sun Wukong and Hercules, so they can definitely do a good job in researching characters representing mythological characters. So they can certainly do a good job with Zeus and Odin. As for who I think would win, I've heard a lot of people say that Odin would win because he's seemingly more powerful than the Greek god Zeus. But I honestly think that Odin would win, honestly. But I think it could go either way, honestly. Just as long as they do a good job and maybe just do a little bit better than Hercules versus Sun Wukong.
I'm so depressed. Then why are you dancing?
At number 7, we have Bendy versus Cuphead. Both of these characters are cartoonish 90s style characters, and honestly, this would probably be one of, if not the coolest matchup to ever happen. We rarely ever have any indie matchups on here, And if they do this matchup, it would be so cool. They already did a DBX episode on this, but I would rather have a full-on episode on this. We already seen how powerful Cuphead can be since going up against the devil, and many people assume that Bendy is just as powerful, if not even more powerful than the devil. So this would definitely be a really cool matchup. As for who I think would win, I'd probably say Bendy, just because many people assume that he's just as powerful as the devil, if not even more powerful. But just as long as they do this matchup just like they did with the DBX episode, I think I'd be very happy with this.
It's gonna take forever to get through this line!
It's Doomsday!
Ever since the womb till I'm back with my brother went dash with my...
At number 6, we have Doomsday versus SCP-682, DC versus the SCP Foundation. Now, I already know that the Death Battle community has said that they wouldn't be doing any matchups regarding anything related to the SCP Foundation, but they did say that if they had to choose one matchup regarding an SCP matchup, that this would be their main choice. And honestly, I can see why. Both of these characters are monstrous figures that can adapt to literally whatever they're thrown into. As for who I think would win, honestly, these two are pretty evenly matched in my book, so I think it could go either way. But honestly, this would be such a chaotic matchup that I think it could potentially throw out Hulk versus Doomsday when it comes to being even more chaotic.
You're not listening to me!
Did you just slap me?
I was calming you down. Why would that calm me down?
At number 5, we have Old Man Logan versus The Last Ronin. This was one of those matchups that, again, I didn't really understand at first, but once I heard more and more about it, the more I realized that I actually really like this matchup even more. Both of them are disheveled versions of their younger selves. While both of them are still very strong, they're both probably at their weakest points here. And honestly, I don't really know who would win, with Old Man Logan being incredibly strong and powerful, and The Last Ronin still being Michelangelo, but definitely the toughest version of Michelangelo there is. So I don't really know who would win, but this is another really cool fight that, again, I don't really care who wins, but I would much rather prefer The Last Ronin to win, just because I know more about TMNT instead of Old Man Logan.
Don't break anyone's heart. They only have one. But they have 206 bones. So...
At number 4, we have Destroyer versus Iris, Godzilla versus Gamera. This is one of the many Godzilla fights that I want to see on Death Battle. We already have one Godzilla matchup, that being Godzilla versus Gamera, and we're getting a new one with Hulk versus Godzilla. So, rather than just doing Godzilla, they need to do more of the Godzilla monsters surrounding it. And what better monster to do it than one of his many arch enemies, Destroyer. Yeah, I know Ghidorah versus Deathwing is another Godzilla matchup, and that was really cool. The only thing is that I don't really know much about Deathwing to really understand a lot of that matchup. But this one I understand because Death Battle introduced both Godzilla and Gamera to me, and also Godzilla vs. Gamera was the first Death Battle episode that I ever watched. So this one kind of has a special place in my heart just because it has both of Godzilla and Gamera's enemies fighting each other. As for who I think would win, probably Destroyer, just because I know a lot more about Destroyer than I do Iris. But this is another one of those matches that I would absolutely love to see happen. And if I had to pick, probably Destroyer because he's a lot cooler.
Literally stop sending me voice messages because they're not funny, actually.
At number 3, we have Kratos versus Doomslayer, God of War versus Doom. This is one of those matchups that definitely has to come later in Death Battle, since, in case you guys didn't know, Death Battle just recently released Kratos versus Asura, and for Kratos to return again in the same season, that's definitely unlikely. So this is one of those matchups that has to come in later during the show. But if for some reason they actually do this matchup, I would be so incredibly hyped and patient for this episode to come out. And since both of these guys are very, very powerful in their own rights, one slays gods, one slays demons, and also on who wins, I honestly don't really know. Just from what I've seen, maybe Doomslayer. I've seen a lot of people say that Doomslayer is stronger than Kratos, but honestly, that's one's bet to say who's stronger. But honestly, I'd be very, very happy if this episode was actually true.
Put so many additives in this food, they forgot to add the actual food.
It's not so bad. Don't you think I have a healthy glow?
At number 2, we have SpongeBob SquarePants versus Gumball Watterson, Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. This is the matchup that everybody has been talking about ever since SpongeBob vs. Aquaman came up. And let's be honest, when that first teaser of SpongeBob came out, we all assumed that he was going to be facing off against Gumball. But Death Battle pulled the wool under our noses and revealed that Super Friends Aquaman, of all characters, would be fighting him. And in all honesty, Gumball would definitely have a better chance against SpongeBob. And plus, this would definitely be a really good time for this episode, or for this to be an actual episode, considering that both of these characters are pretty broken in their own rights, with both of them relying on cartoon physics, and with the fact that a new Amazing World of Gumball season is coming out very soon. I think this is probably one of the better chances for this to be an actual episode. And with both of them relying on their cartoon physics just to gain an upper edge. Depending on who would win though, I'd probably say SpongeBob. But Gumball has survived pretty crazy stuff as well, so who knows.
Sonic says, if you're bored, punch an orphan. What are they gonna do, tell their parents?
Finally, for my number 1 pick for my most wanted Death Battle episode of all time is Goku vs. Sonic. Yes, this is a really basic choice, but I mean, come on. Death Battle has already made Shadow vs. Vegeta towards the very beginning of the series, and they already made Silver vs. Trunks. So they have to complete the triangle by including the main characters of each of their stories. Both of these guys are very, very similar when it comes to their personalities, their power sets, their abilities, and basically pretty much everything else. I hear a lot of people say that Goku is the stronger of the two, while Sonic is the faster of the two, and honestly, I can really see why. Now, depending on who would win, I feel like it would kind of depend on which versions of the characters we're talking about here, because yes, there's a lot of versions of these two, mainly with Sonic, because if we're going off with Archie Sonic, like with Archie Sonic versus Wally West, then I feel like Sonic may have a really, really good chance here. But if we're going off against something, say, like movie Sonic, then there's a very good chance that Goku is sweeping here. But maybe they'll do a thing where they'll like make a composite version of Sonic and Goku, where they take everything and just put it into one. So this is my number 1 Death Battle matchup of all time that I really want. And hopefully this will happen. Only time will tell. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and that was my top 15 most wanted Death Battle episodes of all time. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree with some of these picks, or if you guys want to just comment down below what your most wanted matchups are. And also, let me know down in the comments below if you want me to continue making Death Battle episodes like this, or if you just want me to stick with making Hella vs. content. I'll do whatever you guys want to do. Anyways, before the video ends, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell to be notified when a brand new video or short gets released, and also comment down below some Hella vs. ideas or just video ideas in general. I'd really like to hear from you guys. But that's going to be it for today's video, folks. I've been your host, sWebEntertainment, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.